Gotta get used to these buttons, the way they are now. Okay. Really need to figure out the noise gate. It needs to stop picking up as much noise as this does. But anyway. Today, first order of business is to figure out why events are not making integration events are being published with Kafka. So the messaging outbox suggests that the message got sent, and well, that took a while to process. But anyway, got sent. So the data is in the planning items, but the data is not in the view. So the view consumer is not consuming it correctly. So planning item integration event, I got rid of project. Yes, I got rid of project. View consumers is definitely being picked up. Let's see what the Kafka side of things says. Brokers, topics. The planning side says there's no actual topics. That's awesome. I mean, there's your... Okay, so there's the message. Consumers, the schema. Okay, so it's crashing because the topics don't exist. That's why I'm trying to consume topics that don't exist because I deleted the thing. So how do I make sure my topics exist on startup? What I could do, so manually creating them every time is going to be tough. The problem is that I have, I use Docker to bring up and down the system. So if I'm doing something different development-wise, I use a different database image entirely, so that I don't overlap, right? And I don't end up creating databases inside of this one and making a mess. Just trying to be disciplined in that respect. But what that's causing a problem with is, I got all sorts over here. Avalonia, CSS, water in water. Kafka command line tools. So there is a CLI, but that's there. That doesn't make sense. That's not. That's Kafka in its entirety, right? So you got to download Kafka. This is Kafka. This is the call. This is not the CLI that I really want to use. It can be accessed from bin directory after downloading and extracting the Kafka files. So, okay. Binary downloads, source downloads. I don't want the Docker image, that's the problem. Not the source download either. I want the compiled binaries. And the let's see. PowerShell. So what I'm looking to do is literally write something that looks like, you know, something like Kafka topic add, planning items. So liquid sky. Partitions 1. And something like that, right? Where I can script out a bunch of these. So, actually, on that point, localhost 8500. So, again, the Kafka configuration, these are the 5 that I need, right? So I need liquid sky tenants, tenant users, users, projects, and planning items. So, tenants, tenant users, planning items, and projects. So something like this is all I need. Where when I add a new topic, I can just add it in here, and then it will automatically create for dev. This is not a production script that I'm wanting to create. Kafka topics. There you go. Almost exactly that. Right. So I'm wanting to do something like that, where this is liquid sky planning items partitions 1. Again, I don't need more than 1. 1 and 2 wants to say no. It's all local. So I need something to run this script. That's all I need to build. Create or delete a topic. You can also use the tool to retrieve a list of topics associated with Kafka cluster. The tooling clearly exists because obviously it's being invoked from this, right? Actually, let's find out where. Sure. My apologies. Let's find out where this is. Open file location. So this is probably using the Java libraries, right? Zookeeper, Kafka clients, yeah. So it's using Java libraries around this. I don't want to go all that extensive. I don't want to create a tool in .NET to create this. That would just be excessive. If I can use a script. Kafka CLI standalone. Is Kafka Connect in standalone mode? Kafka Connect is not what I want to use. That's great. That just links to that, by the way. I don't want to create a full tool to do this. This is silly. I should be able to script it out. I mean, whoever did this has done people a favor. Topic fundamentals. Topic is related. Configuration. I mean, there's a lot of information here. Using Java. That's pretty cool. But, so, I could have created the topics by now, but this is when it's worthwhile spending a little bit of time just trying to find let's see. I don't want to install and run Apache Kafka. I want to run the CLI. So the CLI tool is here. Right, the CLI is actually installed. Right, but I can't just invoke it. That's the problem. Like I can get there and I can probably do Kafka. Oh. It really wants me to give me that admin. I don't really want to spend time messing around in that, do I? But it should be in there. The CLI should be in there. I thought that would have been accessible straight away. But maybe I make that a research project off stream. I don't want to spend too much time doing that. So the problem is the topics don't exist. So I had to go in here and do liquid sky dot projects. And again, I'm doing one partition. It doesn't matter for dev. Liquid sky dot tenants. Liquid sky dot users and liquid sky dot tenants. And the more Tefwatts, thank you very much for the follow. Welcome in. If you have any questions, thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, more than welcome to share. Okay, so they're there now. So if we start the application up, yeah, as the application grows, those topics aren't going to get any smaller. They're not going to get any fewer. And hand delivering them every time I want to develop on the system is going to be challenging, to say the least. So what I'm looking at is this view consumer should start up and consume the messages now. Declare exchange, planning items, yeah. So if I go over here, there you go, planning items are there. So now I refresh and go to planning. I should get a record. Requirements, 10 users. Should have a record. Oh, I don't, because the planning item isn't assigned to me. Is it? Yeah, it is assigned. Good day, Kenny. Hope you're well. So we received this message. So the initial problem was that Kafka wasn't in it. The Kafka topics weren't there. You can produce messages to topics. That works fine. So if a topic doesn't exist and you produce a message, it will carry the defaults of the system, right? So I think that one might end up with three partitions on that planning items. 2 partitions. 2 partitions. Yeah, it's ended up with 2 partitions. So my defaults must be 2 partitions. Or not. Is there a bug in that UI? By the way, when you produce a message, Kafka, if you don't have, you can actually avoid, there's a setting, I think, where you can say don't create the topic automatically. But by default, it will try and create the topic if it doesn't exist when it goes to publish a message. You never want that to happen in production, so you never want to rely upon that behavior, because if you do, it will create using the defaults. And partitions should, or topics and partitions should be part of your data strategy. They shouldn't just be there to support data. The way I'm using it in this system so far, it's not going to make a big difference in development, right? But I shouldn't get into the practice of letting it create the topics. When a consumer starts, though, if you're telling it it's listening to topics, those topics have to exist. It will not create them automatically. I think I don't think there's a way of telling it to. But again, you wouldn't want it to. I kind of dislike that it does create automatically. I think it should crash when a topic doesn't exist. Yeah, it's like a database. You should have a migration script that creates your topics so that you have control over 100% of it. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a data strategy, right? If you have a high throughput queue that must be created and you don't create it, and the system establishes the topic and starts putting data in there, you've got a problem, because you can't change the partitions at runtime. Once you've created a topic, you cannot change a lot of information about it. And one of those things is partition, because that's part of it allocates it allocates stuff for that partition and for that topic. I keep interchangeably trying to use topic and partition. My apologies, but it allocates stuff for that topic, and then you can't resize the partition or recount them. So, to get the topic correct again, you would have to delete the topic, which means removing all the messages, which means you have to guarantee that all the consumers have consumed it. So it's kind of a chicken and egg. So you don't want to lose control of that for certain. And partitions enable scale out. So if you want more messages through your system, you have to partition the data so that more is available. Yeah, Kafka has a one-to-one, essentially, with a consumer to a partition, right? So if you're publishing messages really fast, like let's say you're producing events. I mean, again, what I'm using Kafka for right now is producing change state of the system, right? The things in my system have changed. Whoever needs to care about them should care about them. But if I was producing actual logs, or I was producing statistical data at a very fast rate, I want my consumers to be able to process that data quickly. I don't want one consumer is going to get bottlenecked. If I have one partition and 2 consumers, it doesn't matter, because they're going to take turns to get information from the partition. So it's not going to increase my throughput. It's essentially the same as having the consumer consume that message one at a time. So what I can do is increase the partitions and then increase the number of consumers to match. So the higher throughput you want, the more partitioning and the more consumers you want. There are strategies you can apply to partitions as well. So you can actually kind of allocate more to certain types of messages if you want to. D1, hello, how are you doing? How are things? So, I'm good. Good. Yellow cheese, right? I'm not bad. I'm not bad. It's Wednesday. It's nice out. I'm getting to do some coding to start my day. I'm resisting the urge to tinker with game dev. I need to focus on this project. I need to make sure I make progress on this. Oh, there we go. It did show. Okay, it just reloaded before. So the planning item is created to and assigned to Jeffrey Winkle, and then we have the requirements attached. So this is working again, right? The challenge of building a system that is distributed is if you're doing it on your own, the moving parts can get a little overwhelming, bit by bit by bit. You know, in reality, individual teams could be assigned the functionality of one of these components, right? If you think if a UI team was developing this, then all they care about is the view, so they can work in their isolated area. Mr. Jones, good afternoon. How are you doing? So let's go and add a new planning item and see. So planning item, make progress today. The intent is to make progress towards filtering the planning items. 05, wait, 2024, assigned to Jeffrey. So this appears here when the server has acknowledged and updated the ID. Delta, hello, how are you doing? The camera looks better. I've got the key light on today. I don't think I had the key light on the last couple of days because I didn't like the light shining in my face. It sharpens the image a lot. As well. Less fuzziness. But I always figure that being down in the bottom corner of the screen, it really doesn't make much difference to people. Okay, so make progress. Planning items should be able to be tagged project. This is going to be harder. Thinking about why certain side projects fail. Okay. Complexity of the problem will be one reason. Yep. More projects. The pure prototype projects that have a very simple problem always get done. Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree. Definition matters also. Yeah, I agree. Purpose as well. It's easier to build blackjack the game than some system that helps you play perfect blackjack. Yeah. Okay, let's go down here. Go to projects, add a project. This would be planning. This would be right. Your purpose as well. I would say definitely. For me, this project obviously is one that I could give up on. It's a side project, and it is not easy. There's a high level of complexity, right? But I have a passion for what I'm doing, so I'm working through those moments where I'm like, I'd rather be doing something else, right? Because when you don't make progress as well. So right now I've just got to the point where I've reversed literally a week's worth of work because I realized there was a challenge in the way I was designing it, and that didn't need to be there. So I do want to be able to say, hey, I need to see planning items that are associated with certain projects, but the stories aren't created yet, right? So the stories are the ones that kind of go against the projects, but realistically, I should be able to tag this planning item with the project tags so that you can see, oh, this planning item relates to these projects, etc. So I still need the kind of functionality, but I didn't need it. So I've reversed it. Well, that sort of stuff can kind of break you down as well, right? I'm not making forward progress. I'm going backwards, and it's like, oh, it's just busy work essentially. That system I'm more motivated to work on. Scope is the obvious limiter, but what is scope? Yeah, sorry. Tech choice is another scope choice. Yeah, all goes in, and if you're working on a side project, why? Like, not again, passion project is one thing, but what's driving you forward as well, right? It's why Twitch is good, and it's why places like Discord are good, because you can show off what you're doing, and you should be proud of showing off what you're doing, right? If you can share a project you're working on and, talk about the technology you're using, you'll be more engaged with it. Because, and if you're building something that can help people, having people use the tool will drive you forward as well, because you will be motivated because it will burst. What is it? Is it dopamine? Which brain chemical am I thinking of? Motivational component or reward motivated behavior. Yeah, dopamine. So providing that tool, I do apologize. The ads are about to start. They're a minute and a half long. If you'd like me to pause, you're more than welcome to ask. If you're suffering from the ads. Yeah, if you've got a tool, if you're building something and you know that there's people that can appreciate that tool, sharing that tool with people will give you a hit of dopamine, because it will help you motivate yourself forward. For me, this tool, this is me that believes that I think there's a better way of doing some of this stuff. And maybe by the end of it, I find out, I'm just hitting the same problems because people want to work a certain way, right? I've got to get it to a point though that I can put it in front of people and say, hey, do you want to give that a go and see how you feel? But right now it's too weak. It's like, um, it's like showing off a crayon drawing. It's not going to really impress people that are, all about art. Is backtracking really backwards progress if you learn something new about the problem? No, really. No. But it can be demotivating, in so much as you're undoing things. Welcome in, by the way, Chaotic Track. How are we doing today? I'm doing good. How are you, Tantic? How is your day going? Good, good. So we're just talking about project motivation and kind of what drives you forward. And yeah, I backtracked. I lost a week of work because I put projects into planning items, and projects themselves don't need to be. Not as if I'm jealous of not having a deep voice or anything. I don't think my voice is that deep. I think like I sound more muffled than deep. But yeah. But anyway, your voice is deep. Okay. Um, so yeah, I put projects into planning items, and now I have the issue of then I had to reverse that because a planning item itself shouldn't be about the project. The planning item is kind of the brainstorming tool to give to project management to give to the product management team, so they can kind of build out their wish list. They can review this with the developers before it becomes stories, before it becomes actual targeted work. So the idea is you add up a list of requirements here, and then the developers look over it with you and say, no, that's us. Yeah, we can work on that as one story. That is another story for us. Oh, that's nothing to do with us. That goes to the infrastructure team, or that goes to a totally different team. And the stories can be created and discussed before they become actual stories. So the aim of this is to try and make sure that people are thinking about the things you need to do before they become work to be done, because when it becomes part of the backlog, it looks bad on the development team, and I think that negatively impacts a team when they see a lot of work sat there not being done. Yeah. Consistent progress is certainly the hardest part of personal projects for me. Your side is looking at it. Thank you, Katek. I appreciate it. Yeah, consistent progress. And it's why I stream it, right? So because this 2 hours at the beginning of the day, if I hit a challenge that I can't overcome, I can sit there and try and think about it, but I might waste the 2 hours. If I stream, if I hit the challenge, I'm talking about it. I'm talking through it. I'm even if no one's actually in the chat, I'm still talking through it. It helps me be productive in that way, and that's why it's good to have, again, environments where you can talk with other developers. Discords where they've got a lot of good people in there, got a lot of knowledgeable people. One Line's Discord is a quiet Discord, but there's some really smart people in there as well. My Discord, not. Again, I always feel bad self-promoting my own stuff, but the Discord has people like Dota and George Smileyface and Apex have been active there recently, but there are other people in there, Mr. Anhorn, lots of knowledgeable people on different things, and finding those sorts of communities can help. If you're willing to do it, put your stuff like screenshots or put your thoughts out there and try and engage other people. And sometimes just the act of talking through it will help. How polished to look you're okay with is another factor in scope. Yes. Again, this is bugging me. I want it to be perfect, but obviously it's developer UI. So at some point I have to admit that I'm only going to go so far, as well as architecture choices, which is a double-edged sword in my experience. Being proud of the project, I think, is how polished it is more than anything. Yes. Pride will definitely come with polish. Usability. I'm building this in my way, right? I'm not building this with a user in mind. I'm building it because I'm a developer. That's going to trip me up at some point. I'm going to have to put this in front of someone that is not a developer and ask them to go through the system and watch them. So, screen recording tools, etc. Yeah, that's important. I completely broke one of my side projects the other day. I almost started from scratch, or rage got to reset hard, but figured out though in the end. Yeah, frustration will do that to you, right? Things aren't working. Sometimes it's hard to track down, and that's why just practicing on projects, right? The game library project, I've started that up so many different times, and I've never got to where I want to be with it. But I keep doing it. I keep trying different ways, different techniques, and every time I do it, I learn something new. And also, new technologies have come along. I can experiment with other things. and that's a good point though, Mr. Jones. Using Git, don't be afraid to change things as you go, and rely upon the tooling you've got to revert changes, etc. So if you go and do a refactor and the application isn't working, it's okay if you need to reset it if you know why it failed. Sometimes you move things around. Like this project looked totally different. If you look back at the early videos of this project structure looked very different. I mean, these components were here, but this stack looked very different, and I reorganized it into more clean architecture, which is why I asked yesterday if you get some opinions on the clean architecture video. If you have I'd love to hear your opinions on it, Mr. Jones, because I want to see how people feel about it and what questions and challenges other people experience. So yeah, like on the whole project thing, if you want to share projects, if you want to ask questions about projects, my Discord's always there. I'm always happy to talk about stuff. I love talking about software. I if I can help, I do. Having a team is also helping motivation, right? So keeping you forward. But normally I get stuck when I hit points where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing next, or So for me, the challenge with this project is I need to move it forward, right? So adding the tools in to see who's assigned to what, or filtering this list out is a key component of using this screen. Otherwise, this screen's just a list of things for you, right? Also, that allows me to experiment with the GraphQL pieces. It allows me to flex those pieces and make sure that they are what I want them to be. I still have some reservations as to GraphQL. Am I using it correctly? Am I really benefiting? I know I'm not benefiting from this right this second, because what I'm doing is I'm abstracting the database away from this front end, and GraphQL seems to do its best when it's hooked directly into a DB context, which I dislike the idea of because that feels unnatural, right? The DB context is direct access to the database, right? Now, for those who I don't know who's been here before. I don't know how much you know about this project, but this is the overall diagram of the project so far, with future expansion over here, right? So the system's separated into components. These components have their own responsibilities, so their own data stores, so these are microservices essentially. They're not micro though. I wouldn't say they're micro. So I kind of refer to these as components because each one of these components can have one or many running services, right? There's an API at least, and then there's there's potential of having it consume events, consume things from Kafka and from Service Bus. So there may be consumers listening for events happening, and it's also producing messages. So there's many parts in each component. Each component produces its own data. It owns that data, but it produces it out as Kafka messages or Kafka events when they change, with a source. So within a component, only the component can publish the event, but it can publish it from different places within the component. So the same event can be triggered just with a source. So kind of a reason for change as such. And then Kafka consumes it, and the view database here is a pure read-only database from the GraphQL perspective. It never writes to this database from this side. It only writes from the consumer side to store the data. And then the client is querying from the GraphQL endpoint and sending data via an API gateway so it can get appropriately directed to these pieces. So planning So tenant management owns projects. Planning doesn't necessarily care about projects other than being a label and ultimately being kind of a target for stories, right? So when stories are created, stories will get a planning identifier, a planning. Stories will get a project assigned to them. Okay. Looks like it's really going to rain. It's great when you have some people coming to do some work outside. So yeah, GraphQL, I have to change this. And I do keep track of what I'm doing. And ultimately, again, this tool, I will be using this tool to track the work I'm going to do, which is why I'm starting to write more like focused. I mean, that one was just messing around because I wrote something originally and lost it. You know, I need to start building these out as if I'm actually using them, and eventually build a version of the system that I can actually use, and then I can track the work in the tool. So planning items should be able to be tagged with a project. When creating a planning item, I should be able to select one or more projects. So the idea here is when I go in here, I should be able to say, okay, this planning item affects planning items and view, right? So if I go over here, no, I didn't mean to start it all then. I honestly didn't. Oh yeah, it's because I've got no cancel on that. You know, tenant management, planning, ticketing. What else would there be? There'd be stories. Right. So the different projects, the different components for this, right? So we kind of talked about what is a project as well. And I think right now a project is a group of people or a project failure seems very directly related to why they fail. Project failure seems very project scope. I can see that on personal projects. How many of you have sat down and dreamt up a crazy? If you dreamt up a crazy vision of a project, and it's not so much you're kind of requesting yourself. Like you've got all these dreams and hopes of the features that are going to go into there, right? Oh, it can do this, and oh, it can do that, and oh, we'll make it do this, and oh, right. And it's actually why I haven't chased doing any bot work on stream recently. I think it's a constant chase of features, and you're constantly coming up against issues with reliability, with scalability, with all sorts of other issues, and it's a constant fight. And yeah, and it is raining. Awesome. I'm putting most of my game dev ideas on hold until I have people to work on them with too much work to do alone. I mean, that might be where it's worth going off and doing some prototypes and tinkering with some ideas independently, and just kind of time boxing them. I think Dota's kind of, and then you get sidetracked by CSS and spend far too long playing around with visuals rather than actual coding. Well, that's again why I've kind of held off on overthinking this design, because I need the features to come together. I need the pieces to work, and then I can worry about the way it looks. And again, I'm more than willing to spend several $100s trying to see if someone wants to do a full mock-up of this when I get all the pieces in there. I mean, side projects have a limited time frame as feature, not a bug. It makes a similar environment to work, but no real pressure. And that's another key thing, right? When you're being paid to do work, doesn't care. You don't. Well, you care, but you're you're motivated to move forward with it, right? So, and it's why you end up with code bases that look horrible, because it's just get it done, right? If people start taking that attitude towards a code, it'll show quickly. My point to Chaotic was maybe if there's so much work to do that you've got to find someone else. If you know there's someone else available and you might be able to get hold of them and work with them, that's fine. But if you don't have other people to work with, then you're kind of just putting everything off until what date, when, So it might be worth kind of working on some of the prototype components of the things you're trying to think of, and then focusing just on that. Like, can I get an enemy to move when this triggers, right? Or it depends on how skilled you are or how experienced you are with the game dev, I suppose. But, for me, it would be something like, and I will give you an actual example. I started making a game on Monday's stream and tinkering with that. And today I was tinkering with it just before stream. And I was like, oh, well, I'll need to fire a thing. I have no idea how to do that, right? So if I kind of put the pressure on myself, then I'm going to get stuck and give up, right? So I kind of tinker with that piece, right? Okay, how do I make a thing happen when a thing comes in range? And that's my focus. So, and I did a lot of prototyping early on in this product, by the way. I did a lot of prototyping with different technologies. I tinkered with, there was a version of tickets that used Couchbase, and probably still will. I'm still thinking that tickets might benefit better from having a more document DB, but yeah. Work suffers from too much focus on shipping. Side projects have the opposite issue. Yeah, you've got no motivation to ship, which is, again, if you have projects you want to share, if there's game projects, if you have questions, if you want feedback, use the discords of people that are in the communities, right? Post your work, get that feedback. It will help boost you a little bit. Obviously, you've got to be prepared for any criticism, but handle that, right? It'll be fine. It'll be worth it. Getting better at 3D modeling, textures, sound design, and music are the biggest gaps for me. Trying to think of 2D and text-based games to get around that. Yeah. I started thinking, so Monday stream, I picked up Godot, I started doing some game dev stuff, and I realized just how much I overthink it and how much effort I put in to try and, oh, well, this should be this, and this has to be this, and oh, that can't be right. That feels very hacky. And reality is, you need to do something. You need to push forward, do something so that you have the experience of doing that thing. And when you push forward and have that experience, you understand what better looks like. If you don't, if you're scared to push forward into the thing, how do you know what it is, right? People could criticize you. People could say, "Oh, that's horrendous," but you've never done it before, so, oh well, they can be critical, and people can be like that. But if you push forward and do it and get it done, and someone says, "Oh, well, you could do it this way," you now have the perspective to understand what they mean when they say you could do it this way. And, some people will try and push their way, but yeah, progress, not perfection. Exactly. Move forward with it, and you'll do it. I like to pick a topic for a longer period of time, like looking at databases for 1-3 months every year, kind of thing. That's the central theme to dev. Yeah, and it's a personal thing, right? That's a challenge. That's something you want to think about. That's something that you feel is beneficial to you, and you're driven by that. There, I'm picking something to learn better depth on the topic. Yeah, and every time you go at it, you're going to learn a little bit more. You're going to learn a different technique. You're going to learn a different challenge. And that is a beauty of side projects, by the way. So we might be saying, hey, how do you stop yourself from dropping side projects? Or how do you stop yourself from failing at side projects? But in reality, what you should be focusing on is those side projects might actually help you understand other things better. They might actually improve your skill set, and take something from every single one, even if you fail at it. Since devs spend so much time on broad skills, kind of natural, yeah. So in Dota's case, working on the database, writing an actual database, when it comes time to using a database in work, you might understand something because of that work, and be able to move forward with your actual career path better because of that side work. Even in the game dev space, if you're not doing game dev in work, but you are doing it on your side, you're still learning optimization techniques. You're still learning about structuring code. You're still writing code. You're still building things and modeling potentially real world events, depending on what you're doing. So there are still skills that you can take away. So no project is a failure if you come out of it with something. The best example of that is learning DB features rather than building of one. Well, but DB features without the need, like understanding how certain things function. So let me see, Microsoft Wikipedia. ASP.NET MVC. So pre-Ruby release 2016. So MVC launched in there you go, MVC December 2007, the CTP. So it launched initially in 2009, MVC 1.0. I didn't understand how MVC worked. So I picked I built this framework. This was built initially. This was built a lot earlier, right? So this is a version of this existed back before this time frame. So I wrote an MVC framework myself, right? It worked. It actually built. I could build controllers. I could build actual sites, right? So I built extends controller. So I was using classes in PHP back in PHP 5. I was actually making methods. These actually got called. There was routing and everything, right? So I built this Amity framework on SourceForge. That's what it's initially called. But I built it to try and understand PHP. I spent a lot of my early career doing PHP stuff. Not on the side as well, side projects, not even professionally. I built a site at the beginning of my career in PHP, then everything was on the side until the last year, where now I'm a PHP developer. I don't like calling myself that because I really don't see myself as a PHP developer. I don't get to do much PHP. But anyway, the point is I built this project. It never went anywhere. No one ever used it. I used it on one site once, but it is there, and it is a project I built to try and understand the concepts. And I did. I got an idea of how the challenges that were in there, like what does it mean to route? What does a pipeline look like? How do you apply authentication, etc.? I got to tinker with all those sorts of things. And then again, when I came to .NET MVC, I actually went to Ruby on Rails and started building an application in Ruby on Rails to try and understand the MVC pattern a little bit better and try and understand how Microsoft was doing it and what challenges were there. So I actually tinkered with Ruby on Rails and built some stuff there. So, again, side projects, just little tinkering projects that grew my skill set and allowed me to get a little bit better at doing the things I need to do. So not all side projects are bad. Not all side projects have to hit completion. And I think, Delta, you're right. Like scope, keep your scope close. Keep your features, maybe document your features, whatever works for you. Thank you for the look, Mr. Jones. But just keep practicing and don't be afraid to throw something out. Corey Weathers, who sometimes streams now, busy man, he he had a running thing with Lucy about Hurricane loves file new, right? Because hey, I need to do something, file new, right? Build a new one, build something else, build something else. It's a great way to learn. So I definitely see the benefits. Okay, so, and anyone new to the stream, this is more than welcome discussion. This is all about software development, right? What I'm doing on stream is sharing, and ads will start shortly. I do apologize. What I do on this stream is I develop software in between conversations, right? Off to work later on. Dota, thank you very much as always. Take care. Have a great day of work. I feel it's okay to talk about software development. It's okay to talk about ideas and thoughts and opinions on this. Different perspectives can help you a lot of the time as well. So, yeah. Okay, so let's open WebStorm. So the way I work is I have Rider open for the .NET stuff, so the application stack is running. There's 8 projects currently. They make up planning, tenant management, tickets. Tickets isn't actually active in this piece right this second, so I could break it out. Those 3 core, and then there's the consumer projects, and then I have an internal project started as well. This is for promotion of the planning items to tickets, or tickets to planning items right now. And then the view, etc. And the view here is a GraphQL API, which again I'm going to review. So what I need to do today, or what I want to focus on, is when I add a new item, I need to be able to select tags. Actually, that is removed. So that's important to push and merge. Interesting. Concerning that was removing project. Remove project from So I know that I'm about to say, hey, look, I'm removing project from planning item. I'm going to push that change up, and then I'm going to say, now add project to planning item. But that's not, this design was wrong. So I had project directly assigned to a planning item. But again, a planning item needs to be kind of evolutionary or iterative. It doesn't need to be statically linked to a thing from the start, right? So if I say, oh, I need a planning item, and it's going to be the tenant management system, that's bad, because then the planning, and if you've worked in development, you'll know that you've been hit with the whole product manager dictating how something should work. Oh, well, that's just this, right? I wish I had not heard that so much. Oh, it's just this, right? So if I tie this to a project from the start, they're dictating where it's going to live and who owns it, right? But that doesn't mean that others shouldn't be able to see what project it's intended for, right? So what I want to do is, instead of having a direct association, I want tags to be able to group planning items by tag, etc., and filter by tag. So the design might be the same, but it's different. Or the intent might be the same, but it's different. So I do have a backlog. I do try and build up on this thing. There's some things in here, suggestions, etc. Is this a modular monolith, or is it already split into separate services? I think modular monolith is the closest. I don't like necessarily trying to label it because I think people have different understandings of what those things are. I was looking at Milan's post on modular monoliths, and some of what I do agrees with that, and some of it kind of disagrees with it. So I would say it is a modular monolith if I had to label it. Microservices would be too complicated at this point for this, like breaking it down into even smaller services. So I kind of refer to these as components. And the beauty, the way the system is designed, the use cases in here are kind of commands, specifications, subscribers. So when I need to pull data, I have a specification to pull the data. I use Ardalis's specifications library. I kind of like it. It gives me the query away from the code. A piece of code mostly looks like this. So most of these actions right now are CRUD. I want to add a note for a ticket. Add note for ticket is under notes, and this literally goes and gets the ticket and then adds a note. Ta-da, done. These could be broken out into smaller pieces if I need to. So right now these are grouped under these things. So modular monolith, kind of probably more accurate to say it's a modular monolith. But again, there's multiple services, right? So this is an API. This is a consumer service. This actually is an HTTP component that I just broke out because I don't want it blurring or messing with all the rest of the stuff. That's more request response. Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing what you're seeing. Do you agree that would be classed as a modular monolith? Do you feel that is incorrect to label it that way? I'm always looking for opinions on this stuff because I think that we tend to the people that put out all the content and produce the most things to say tend to control our interpretation of what something is, but it's not always easy to follow along with what we should do to build that thing, right? Mr. Anhorn, good morning. How are you doing? So I'm always interested in different people's opinions and thoughts on this sort of stuff. Good on your end. Good to hear it. And unit test failed. Unit test didn't fail. Do you deploy each service independently? Well, I don't deploy everything yet. Yeah, essentially they would be deployed independently. Even within a component, they would be deployed independently, right? So consumers and tickets there, those two would be deployed independently. Independent. Distributed monolith. Probably more of a distributed monolith. We just like. I mean, that's why I'm always scared to put labels on it, because the moment I put a label on it, either I say that is what that is, or someone disagrees and is going into it with the wrong assumptions, right? So the problem with standard ways of doing things is there's no standard way of doing things. Even again, when we were talking about the whole clean architecture stuff, if you look at this design, it looks kind of a conglomeration of 3 or 4 different approaches on clean architecture. The principles are there. The kind of flow is there, but it doesn't look exactly the same. And that's what worries me. If I put a label on something, okay, it's because I didn't commit the extra pieces. Okay, this one failed, this one passed. Okay, so we're good. It was the test that I actually just promoted, yeah. Okay, so that's that. So we can merge this in now. But yeah, anybody who's watching this, anybody who's interested, if you have questions, thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, you're more than welcome to share. I'm more than happy to talk about this stuff. I love to explore people's experiences. I've been doing this for a while. This project specifically, I've been working on for about 8 months now. And it's always good to get other people's insights and opinions on software development. It doesn't matter whether you've just started or whether you're an experienced developer, right? I like to hear what people's thoughts are, and I'm more than happy to slow down and look at stuff in this as well, as a learning practice. You can technically change a single module once it makes it to production, but you need to make sure it works with already deployed parts. Yeah, so that's a challenge of distributed messaging, right? That's always that's going to be a continual fight going forward. I can deploy any one of these systems, right? Now I might need to look at Kafka schema. Kafka schema would protect me from sending a message to a consumer that can't consume it. So if I don't bring down this consumer and I publish a new version of the message from planning, say, or whatever, then this wouldn't consume that message. It would just wait and bail out, right? So it would never consume it until it came up to spec and got the right version. That is probably a good mechanism, but adding Kafka schema in is a whole challenge. But yeah, you're right. I can deploy these independently, but I have to be very careful about how I deploy them. Sorry. But even if you use, no matter what technology you're using, if you're distributing your system in any way, shape, or form, you have that challenge. Create pull request. So I do tend to follow this path of doing the code review, even though it's my own pull request. I'm removing project, removing project, removing project. No project ID. I seem to have added a line. Refactored that to view models, even though I think that's changing anyway. Neat. We use open API schema change detection to make sure when we change our APIs, they don't break contracts. It's nice to review after it's all together. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Schema changes. Like, I'm not using APIs. I'm not communicating. There's only one area where I'm communicating via an API, and that is not what I'm going to use eventually. Ultimately, that's going to be service bus message. Oh. Oh wow. Sorry, I'm just checking on something. I said I was having some work done. And they turned up in the rain anyway. Awesome. That's fantastic. Okay, so I just need to keep an eye on them. We merge that pull request, get that in there. Delete that branch. Check out development. Okay, so that's that. So now let's pull development, update that. So we'll pull all those changes in. There we go. Then delete that branch so I don't leave it lying around. So now I need to talk about, or need to think about, how am I going to introduce the projects as a tag, right? So projects are produced. So I do have the list of projects. Right, so planning item, tenant management owns projects. So planning, tenant management, ticketing, and story. Rambling Geek, good afternoon. How are you doing? I don't think my recycle guy is going to be too happy with me today. There's stuff parked in front of everything. Okay, so I need to, with the projects, I need to basically, what I want to do is in here, when it starts, I just need to all start up. And this is another challenge so to get the distributed system up and running is a little bit of a challenge from a development perspective, right? Because you've got to have all these moving parts if you want things to work. But this isn't actually as scary as it seems. Ultimately, what you could do is, if you're working on a specific part, right? Imagine you're working on a ticketing system, right? You don't need the UI for tickets. You can work against the API. So I could build the API endpoint tests. I could do all sorts of stuff in here to make sure the tickets work. Again, unit tests and integration tests can be built against this. I can create a solution just out of this component and the shared components, right? So I could create independent solutions that only have the pieces I need to work with. The UI technically only needs the view database and the UI components running. So you don't have to deploy the entire thing or deliver the entire thing to a development machine every time. So I could actually have different modes to run in here, right? If I'm testing project management, I'm testing planning here, right? So when I go into planning, I really need a loading indicator. When I'm going into planning here, essentially all I need is the components that make up the pieces I'm working with. So I just need to have planning. I don't even need tenant management. No, I don't need tenant management as long as I've got the projects. As long as I'm not adding a new project, I'm fine. But I only need planning, view, and the UI, right? So I can actually narrow the list of services that I actually start. And there's no, again, because of that robust messaging, I kind of air quote that there. Because of that robust messaging, I do have the benefit of being able to start it up later if I want to. Because again, if a message is produced and not consumed right now, it just goes in a topic here. So I could always start that service up to run it afterwards. So I don't need to start the entire lot up. Now I do have a decent machine. It's not a modern it's not a newer processor, but it is plenty, and there's plenty of memory. So I do have lots of bandwidth to play with here. But it is possible to start just a few of these and not everything. So what I'm aiming for now is let's go and create the actual story that I need to work with. So that one's done. May 11th is the deadline I set for myself on this one, which is Friday. No, it's the 8th. That's Saturday. So this is attach projects as tags to planning items. So these will be filterable eventually, right? A planning item may not just fit neatly under one project. The ability to tag the project. And project might actually, now I'm thinking about it, project might not be the right word here because it's kind of components. I use the word components here, and I've got to be careful because this is not my domain as such, right? I'm not trying to model my tool around my application as it stands. I don't want it to become too technical because it's more how people are thinking about the thing. So project is a word that people would understand, and they might see tickets as a project and tenant management as a project because these might actually end up being teams. And Dota's been careful to remind me of this a few times, like with just questions and comments on these things. Understanding what I'm trying to represent is key. What is it I'm trying to present with projects? Is a project a team? There's a board. There's like a work board. If you use the Trello, the Scrum board, does that align with a project? Does a project exist across many scrums, across many Scrum teams? Your organization is going to determine that. So maybe project is a good word now, but maybe project isn't a good word later. Maybe project is an organizational component. Jira does use projects, and projects do become part of the Agile board. But again, I think the reviewing how we organize work is an important part of what I'm doing as well. So, yeah, it might be that project is not one or many projects that are useful. And again, this isn't an organizational thing, right? It's not it's not defining that this planning item lives on that project. Is that when it's kind of a prompt as such. So planning items or projects here might just be tags, right? So you could actually tag it with other things. It's not driving behavior. All right. Okay. So, and again, I'm interested if anybody does have any thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing. If you're following along with what I'm talking about, if some of this makes sense, I'd be happy to listen to opinions and thoughts and stories on this sort of stuff. Because again, if I build this in a silo or build this in my experience, it's very narrowed. So I do need to solicit more feedback and opinions on how work flows, how you think about work. It's going to be a challenge as I go forward because I need to get, again, like I said, I need to get this to a point where I can demonstrate it with the right ideas in place and then be willing to say, that's wrong. Not always listening. I'm also working, so it's lurking myself. No, tempting. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate the look. I'm not trying to say, hey, will you please talk? I'm just trying to make sure that I'm open about the whole. I'm not just sat here saying, hey, I'm going to code. If you want to co-work, absolutely. That's awesome that you get to co-work with me. But I'm also, leaning on the fact that this is in people's wheelhouse. So I hope work is treating you well. Okay, so we need to add not bad. Too bad you don't stream when I don't work. Yeah. It's unfortunately the timing works this way. Okay, so we have the projects. I didn't remove the piece where the projects get produced to the database. So Vue does get projects, right? So that piece is still intact. That is not something I wanted to remove. So at this point now, what I need to do is on the Vue side of things, I need to be able to select this. But the design of the application means that something like this might seem very simple because you're just like, oh, well, you just need to drop a control in the screen that allows you to select tags, one or many tags, and remove them, etc. And then you just save them. But unfortunately, because of the way the system is designed, that isn't quite as simple as it gets, because the view is just the view. So I can pull this data out, I can build the UI. That's not a problem. But to actually get it to save somewhere is the problem. So when you save, right? Again, because of the where's my drawings? When you save something, this goes up into planning as a component, right? It's going to say, hey, save this planning component. Well, this doesn't know about projects. This doesn't care about projects. And this is one of the kind of eye-opening moments for me. Just because I have data attached to this doesn't mean that this system has to understand what the data means, because it can pass it through. It's just associated data, right? So I don't have the need to understand a planning item in here at all. There is no requirement to query this. There is no requirement to pull that or validate that. It is data that I am trusting can be attached to this object. Ticketing, similarly, I don't need, because of the way this is built, the view contains all the things I need to know about, right? I can show them on screen. I can attach them or not attach them, right? So again, planning projects exist in tenant management right now because they're a global concern. There's nothing for them to sit in, and the reason they sit in tenant management is because there's nowhere else better to put them right now. They're not a component of planning. They're not a component of ticketing. They're not a component of stories. So it's important to try and move them into the right place. So they sit in tenant management. If a component comes along that fits better with that need, then they'll move to that. And it's a really simple move in that respect. So again, when I'm saving data, the challenge comes in what do I need to save and where do I need to save it? And in this respect, am I saving projects or am I saving tags? Right? Just because I drive the list of this doesn't mean that this necessarily has to represent associated projects, because it's kind of a hint rather than anything else. So I could just save the labels in here, right? And then look up the labels later. I don't need to actually store the actual IDs. If that makes sense. That way, if I store them as tags, and again, I'm just brainstorming, I'm thinking through the problem here. If I store them as tags and I want to tag them as being, urgent or should review, I mean, the review date is a key component of my review process. So that should review shouldn't be a tag, but, maybe I want to tag it in different ways, not just the projects. So the projects are one set of tags, but the other tags are available, in which case then storing as projects doesn't make sense, because then I have no flexibility there. And furthermore, projects don't matter here. The associated tags we're saving in here to store it in this, but then passing through that. So that this could be plain text. That way, if you remove a tag, it's still tagged with something that existed. You don't want to store tag IDs necessarily, because they have no meaning outside of that. And if I'm saying they're tags, then it's better to do it that way, because then they are just there's no actual ID. It's a list of labels that can be attached, and then you attach labels and you filter on the labels. The downside to that is when it comes time to list the labels that you can filter on, you kind of have to do a distinct over many to get the actual available labels. But that can be built differently as well, because again, view database, I can optimize it for the view scenarios. So I think what I just did there, an ad starts in 3 minutes, by the way. I think what I just did there is talk myself into generalizing out projects as tags at this point. So let's go and look at where do I want to do that? The view side of things is probably where I want to start. I really should change this out. So the GraphQL API is fully authorized. I can actually put roles on things. I can actually make sure that you're not allowed to see certain things. So it is implemented with the auth token stuff anyway. Let's go and actually let's start at the back end a little bit. Oh, the front end. Let's go and look at. Let's look at tailwindui.com. I have a license for Tailwind UI. So I get to use the components. Unlock. Welcome back, Mr. Jones. Splashing all the cash. You are or I am? Input groups. Not me. Oh, Tailwind. Yeah. It's a lifetime license, I believe. So I think I spent it a couple of, last year or so. Yeah. That's why I was like, badges. Here we go. So badges are kind of what I want, right? I want to be able to kind of badge them, but this is the display of them. I need a. Oh dear. Did you finish toying with that guy the other day? I assume he didn't buy anything. Just tried to get him down to as low as he could. What was that? A 680 or something? The graphics card. He's trying to lowball you. Oh, were you selling then? That did I misconstrue the context? Were you selling the graphics card there, and he was trying to get the cheapest price? Gotcha. Sorry. So you were tying you were selling. Sorry, I misconstrued that. Who goes to buy a 680? Who tries to lowball on a over 10-year-old graphics card? His reason was because he had to water mine. Hey, knock some price off because I have to walk to your house to get it. I'll meet you halfway and the price doubles. Okay. Gotcha. Ads. So what I'm looking for right now is see if there's a control for adding in the badges as they're put here, but I don't think there is. What else are these called? They're also termed as pills. I think Ionic calls them pills. Components. Are they pills? No, they're not pills, are they? Not toasts. Search bar, routing, reorder, refresher, range, radio. Have they got rid of them? They're not fabs. Chips. Chips, that's what they are. They're chips. Yeah. Gonna lurk again and go for my walk. If I'm not back before you finish, thanks for stream. Chips. Chips and gravy. Although I would love a pie, chips and gravy right now. And it's only 20 to 9 in the morning. But enjoy your walk. Tell you're a northerner. Sorry, is that too refined for your palate? I'm hungry. Okay, so Ion, there's badges and chips. Is that demo not loading properly? It's not, is it? The demo's aren't loading in. That's interesting. Let's see if they load in. Oh, that's a very bad sign. May have to be a KFC this evening. Tonight is a karate sparring night, so I'll be eating light. But that's interesting. So I'm using DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo will not render the Ionic components. So that's a badge. So, and this is a chip. So the chips are kind of what I want, right? Yeah, chips, as the term there, tags, whatever I want to call it. I mean, tags would be a data concept, and chips or badges or whatever would be a UI concern. So I want to tag them, but there is no Tailwind control for that piece. Where are you? Where did I go? I have so many windows open. So confusing. Tailwind CSS components. So there is no control for this, so I'm going to have to build this. Tag control. Or chips. I don't want it for React. There you go, that's what I want. Show code. But that's just display. that's not going to help me add them in, is it? I'm still going to have to build the control. So let's start this process. Okay, so right now I have a shared components. Let's call this. Let's go with chips. So let's create a new schematic. The standalone components right now, probably I will put them in a module at some point because it kind of makes sense to do that. Chips. Yeah. I always forget the tests. I'm not doing unit. Although, if I was going to do unit tests, this would be the component I'd do it with, right? Because it would be useful to do. So this person has built a. It's a code snippet. It's not built anything. It's just a code snippet showing how you could do these different things. So I don't need that. I'm not worried about priority or color, etc. right this second. So the basic is fine. So this is what we need in terms of that. So we have the chips, and we're going to need a div around the outside because we're going to put an input. It's going to be kind of janky. I'm not a visual designer, a UI designer, so this is going to be a very rough implementation. Later on, we can see if we can find a component. And again, I'm not stuck on Tailwind, on Tailwind UI. It would be nice to have a consistent UI, but again, ultimately I want to find someone who is a very good UI UX designer, and potentially see if they'd be down to do a commission piece of work. Side job. Hey, here's some money, sort of thing. But I've got to build enough of this to understand it in the first place. So let's go and get. What do we do? List view select. So the list view, no, that's just a list. That's not a selects. Combo boxes. Here we go. So the combo box. So the combo box has this component, and we kind of want that component in there, right? So this would be label. Actually, if I'm fixing that, that should be. If that's for screen reader, that should be there, I believe. So input ID is input ID is tag select tag input. Yeah, that might not be a very good ID. So the landscapers I've hired, they've parked on either side of the street. The garbage truck just had to sneak down between the trucks, and the guys had to go out and push the garbage can further out so that the truck could pick it up. Tag input. Making me unpopular with my neighbors, that's for certain, this one. Okay, so let's go and we can remove this one for it. We don't need the value for it a second. We're not selecting, so we don't need to set the value in here. We just need to capture the value of this. And this is tag input. So what I'm going to, first pass, I'm going to see if I can make it add the pills in there. And the second pass is obviously provide an actual drop down to select from as part of that. So, okay, so label here. Oh yeah, the form control. This is a little bit more complicated than I really want it to be. So this is you need to hook into a form control in Angular. You kind of have to do some wiring up so it has certain methods. It's just an interface that you kind of implement against the actual component so that you can get it implements. Right. So you have these methods. That did not go very well, did it? That completely balked all the code. Awesome. So yeah, you have these control value accesses, and this gives you the ability to do that templating was awful. To hook into events and stuff, so you can actually keep an eye on things. What am I doing here? So I need to do. So those are the methods: untouched, unchanged, unlistened. No, those are the different things. We'll get the. This is a reference to the actual control in the HTML. This is how you do that in Angular. So that would be tag input. That's so you can kind of hook up to events and stuff on it. Tag input. Technically, I don't need everything else right this second. I just need so label. Okay, here we go. That's that. Placeholder is label. So labels, by doing that, labels technically required. So let's go to. Hi Vinay, how are you doing? Welcome in. Right now I am trying to build a Angular component. How you doing, Ziz? On YouTube, absolutely. Yeah, YouTube is normally quieter. I normally get more views after stream on YouTube videos than I do during stream. We need to go to app, modules, planning, forms, add planning item, and then we need to add a control in here. So this control will be div app chips. That's an awesome name. Label equals thanks. Import chips component. Okay, so now that should load. And when we do new item, we should have, there's our hello, there's our tags. So it's not perfect, but it's got a control and it's doing the chips. So let's go back here. And again, if anybody's watching and knows any better here, I am more than happy to listen to any experience. So let's get this in here. I'm going to leave these alone for right now because I'm not actually hooking them up to a form. When it comes time to hook them up to a form, then you have to do a bit more. But yeah. So we need to on enter on the enter key here. We need to add the tag to the list of tags, right? So we're going to need public items any actually it's just string, right? And then in here we're going to do for each items as for let item of items track item. And then we're going to output that, and that's going to be item. Right, so that's going to be empty now. Yeah, okay. So now on enter, on enter key, return key, carriage return, line feed, whatever you want to call it, we need to basically add an item into the list. So how best to do that? Capture enter key. I kind of want to be event binding. So it's not, the problem is it's not a key up or a key down, etc. that I'm listening for. I want to capture it. Everything should flow through, and so there's a way I've seen it doing this. So I kind of want to subscribe to the stream so that I'm not always doing it if necessarily. I mean, I probably still am anyway. Stream key events, keyboard events, Angular. No. Listening for key events in Angular. Because I kind of want to subscribe to the actual, but in the control. Host listeners, but that's the host listener is actually in the window, right? It's not actually, that's so I can capture other key events. These are useful if you're doing something like, let's say I wanted to do, what is it in, if I go to GitHub, I do Control K in GitHub. I get the pop up so I can navigate around GitHub, right? I can use this to navigate my repository. I can go back and search for, water, drink water, or other repositories. I can go to my repository list. So you can navigate around Git using Control K. So that's what that host listener is for, so I can capture it at the top level. I don't need that. What I need is essentially listen to the key events of this. So on init, I believe it is on init, and then ng on init, this dot tag import dot native element dot I mean, I kind of just want to stream. I want to subscribe to the key press events. Angular subscribe to key press events. On input. I'm not subscribing to the host listener, so that's. This feels like I'm overcomplicating this. I'm thinking about it too much. Event, Angular. Oh, it's really TypeScript. Key down. Get with key. Key press, event, key code. So, key code. If key code equals I mean, it's not wrong. What's it whining about though? Oh, because I did on in it. Okay. So now we go back over here and do. Ryan, thank you very much for the look. Appreciate it. Key down, one key down, event.keycode. Deprecate. This feature is no longer recommended. Though some browsers might still support it, it may have already been removed from the relevant web standards. The deprecated keyboard event read-only property represents a system. You should avoid using this. It's been deprecated. Instead, you should use keyboard event.code. It's a string. Awesome. Now is key code an enumerable that I can look up then? Event key code. It's not. Event dot code keyboard event JavaScript. Now we're in the JavaScript world, without a doubt. Oh no. No. Key down event.code. Enter keyboard event.key. Hold on, is there actually keyboard event.key and keyboard event.code? The keyboard events interface key read-only property returns the value of the key pressed by the user, taking into consideration the state of modifier keys. Code. Physical key on the keyboard as opposed to character generated by pressing the key. In other words, this property returns a value that isn't altered by keyboard layout or the state of the modifiers. The input device isn't a physical keyboard. So key is going to include modifiers. Code does not. I don't care about key. But that hurts. Like there's no enumeration or static thing there. Okay, ads are about to start. No. So today hasn't been obviously as productive as I want it to be, but it has got us moving further forward. I am building more and more productivity into this application. It's going to take time, right? But I think it's worthwhile spending this time building this out. Yeah. Okay. So that's key T, and that is enter. Key code is enter. If key code equals enter, items.push and break. Native. Okay, so it doesn't have. Okay, so that's why. Tag input. I don't think it likes this. I think it's the that thing. Let's be consistent there. It's this name. Oh, that's why. Yeah, you can't do that one. I think I still have that. Oh no, I didn't. So we can tag it with whatever we want, right? So that would be useful. But we do have the tag control. Obviously, there's some validation, right? We get the value. Let value equals that. If value can't do it. Otherwise, push value. Obviously, there's more validation there. That's not the best way. Because you could enter a lot of space. So, is there a trim? Is it on there? Well, that's S as a string inside. Okay, that should at least ignore multiple spaces. This works. Okay, so it's not the nicest control in the world. We're not going to be selling our component library, but it is at least valuable enough for that. So the next phase would be to actually make it do a drop down and then create an endpoint in GraphQL that would be to get tags or get available tags or whatever. And this would be responsible for joining projects and whatever else we decided could be tagged in there. Free text might actually still be a use case. But the problem with when you do free text is like with Twitch, if you create if I can enter a tag on my stream, I enter it, it becomes part of the tags that are available to other people, right? I believe. Maybe if it's used so many times or whatever, but I think it's still tracked. So would I want to do something like that? I don't know, but that would be down the line anyway. And that would be a feature enhancement long past. It's not critical to the flow. Right now, critical to the flow is providing a lookup of available tags. So there is basically I make this a combo box instead of a text box. use the combo box control with the tags and kind of combine the two. So yeah, that is that. So I gotta raid out. I've got gotta get some food, gotta get on with work, and yeah. So does this allow raids? Can I raid C# for it on Visual Studio channel? Is it well, let's find out. It'll tell me if I can't raid it. You're very welcome, Tempting. Ryan, thank you very much for being here. Thank you all for being here. I've seen the viewer numbers today, and there's a lot of people lurking, which I really do appreciate. I appreciate everyone hanging out. You know, if you ever have any questions, thoughts, or opinions on any of this, you're more than welcome to ask, right? And Ryan, I don't think I follow Ryan. But I'm always willing to go see a different streamer. Ryan 2K. Is Ryan 2K? What is Ryan doing? There seems to be a dog. This is a very unique overlay. Right now, there's a dog lying on a bed on its back. You know what? I'm gonna watch Ryan's stream before I do that. So we're gonna raid Visual Studio for now, and I'll follow Ryan and watch before I raid. Okay. Visual Studio channel does have a follower or subscriber only chat, so I do apologize. But it is C# Fritz. He's talking about Aspire, .NET Aspire, so it's on point for what I do, right? And I will follow Ryan and see for future. Okay, all. Thank you very much. It's Visual Studio. It's the channel Visual Studio by that C# Fritz runs on it's the team. That's the team he's a lead on. So yeah. But anyway, have a great day. Thank you for joining me. I will see you again soon.